Welcome to the Deep Dive. Now, if you're in the C-suite of a mid-sized firm listening in, you're probably navigating some serious growth. That's great, obviously, but growth, it brings its own set of new, significant risks.
Absolutely. It's almost a paradox, isn't it? Success breeds new vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And we've been digging into this guide, Stronger Than You Think, a C-suite guide to managing risk and protecting growth in mid-sized companies. The takeaway, being proactive about risk. It's not just, nice to have. It's crucial.
It really is. Mid-sized firms hit this point where their expansion actually makes them more exposed. So this deep dive, it's specifically for you, the leaders making those big calls. We want to pull out actionable stuff, strategies for handling what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, trying to cut through the noise, maybe the feeling of being overwhelmed.
Right. Give a clearer path forward.
So our mission today is simple. Take the practical advice from the guide and give you, our listeners, the insights to, well, not just survive potential 2025 curveballs, but to actually build a more resilient company.
Building resilience, that's the key.
We're going to hit 4 main areas, the guide flags: financial, operational, leadership, and cyber risks. So let's start with the money side, the financial pressures. Seems like a good place to begin.
Definitely. The guide really hammers home the impact of, inflation, rising interest rates, those persistent supply chain headaches. They're all squeezing margins and messing with cash flow for mid-sized businesses.
Not theoretical anymore, is it?
Not at all. You can't just watch these trends now. You need a plan, a proactive strategy to protect that bottom line.
Okay, so financial risks. The guide mentions stress testing first. What does that actually look like in practice? Is it just worrying about the worst?
Well, it's more structured than just worrying. It's about looking hard at how your business would hold up if things went south. The guide pushes you to ask, really ask, what if our main supplier just vanishes? Or what if our biggest customer walks?
Oof, tough questions.
They are, but the important part isn't just asking, it's figuring out the answers beforehand. What are your backup suppliers? Do you have backup suppliers? How would you plug a massive hole in revenue? It's about having those concrete plans ready to go.
Got it. Moving from what if to, okay, here's plan B and C. Okay, next financial action. Income stream protection.
Yeah.
What's the core idea there?
It's about keeping some money coming in even when things get disrupted. Think, a fire, a flood, maybe a cyber attack takes you offline.
Right. Something that stops normal operations.
Exactly. The guide doesn't push specific products, but the principle is having ways to maintain cash flow during that downtime while you're trying to recover. Business interruption insurance is obviously a big part of that conversation, making sure it actually covers your real risks.
A financial safety net, essentially. Okay, then there's receivable management. This feels like a perennial issue, especially if you sell on credit.
Oh, absolutely. And in this economy, the risk of customers not paying, well, goes up. So the guide says basically do your homework. Check creditworthiness before you extend that credit.
Due diligence.
Right. And maybe look into protective options if needed, things like credit insurance or maybe adjusting your payment terms to, lessen the risk of getting burned.
Smart. Okay, the last financial point. Key person planning. This one can feel a bit awkward, I think.
It can, but it's so important. Think about losing your absolute top salesperson, or maybe a founder steps away unexpectedly, or that one tech guru everyone relies on.
Yeah, the impact can be massive in a mid-sized firm.
Exactly. So key person planning is about having strategies ready to minimize that disruption. That could mean serious cross-training, really good documentation so others can step in, maybe even having succession plans drafted for leadership roles.
Makes sense. Preparing for the hopefully unlikely. Okay, let's shift gears to operational disruption. The guide suggests firms are still kind of recovering from past issues while facing new ones. What's driving that?
Yeah, it's a bit of a double whammy. You've got ongoing labor shortages making hiring tough. Then there's the ever-growing maze of regulations. And, of course, you always have the possibility of, floods, storms, whatever, natural disasters messing things up.
And mid-sized firms often have less cushion for this stuff.
Right. Leaner teams, fewer resources sometimes means these hits land harder.
So, action steps for operational resilience. First up, cross-training. Seems obvious, but maybe harder to execute well.
It does seem basic, but doing it right makes a huge difference. If several people can do critical jobs, you're way less vulnerable if someone's out sick or leaves, or you just can't fill a role quickly. It takes commitment, time for training, but the flexibility payoff is big.
Building that internal bench strength. Okay, next, simplify compliance. That sounds Aspirational, maybe? Regulations aren't getting simpler?
Huh? No, they're definitely not. But the guide suggests practical ways to cope. Using checklists, for instance, just to make sure you're hitting the key points consistently. Partnering with outside advisors who specialize in certain areas. Just trying to make it less of a chaotic burden.
So manageability over, perfect mastery of every single reg.
Pretty much. And staying proactive about upcoming changes.
Okay. Then the guide says think beyond the building. What's that about?
It's about your continuity plan needing to cover scenarios where your physical office or plant isn't usable. Power outage, flood, whatever. Do you have remote work options ready? Are key systems in the cloud? Is there an alternate site identified? You need a plan for keeping the core business running, even if you can't get into the building.
Critical point. And finally, operationally, talent retention. More than just salary, right?
Oh, much more. The guide frames it as fundamental to stability. Yes, pay matters, but so does training. Real opportunities for people to grow within the company and just fostering a positive place to work. Keep your good people. That builds resilience.
Absolutely. Okay, let's tackle leadership risk. The guide argues a lot of risk management failures boil down to leadership not quite being focused enough.
That's a really key insight, I think. If risk isn't actively discussed and prioritized at the top, initiatives just kind of fizzle out. You need leadership to champion that risk-aware culture, weave it into the strategy talks.
So step one is literally integrate risk into strategy conversations. How do you make that happen naturally?
The guide suggests carving out dedicated time in leadership meetings. Just make it a standing agenda item. Ask the question regularly, what could realistically derail our plans? What keeps us up at night? It forces the conversation.
Makes it normal, not just a crisis thing.
Exactly. Keeps it front and center.
Next, involve the team.
Yeah.
Getting input from the front lines.
Yeah, this is huge. The people doing the actual work, they often see problems brewing long before leadership does. The guide stresses not just asking them, but actually listening and taking their feedback seriously. It gives you better intel and makes everyone feel more invested.
Good point. And then reassuringly, the guide says, track it simply. We don't need super complex software.
Not necessarily, especially for mid-sized firms. A good old spreadsheet or a simple dashboard can work perfectly well. Just list your top risks, who owns managing them, and what the progress is. The key is consistency and follow-through, not fancy tech.
Practical. Love it. Last leadership point. Continuous learning, staying sharp on risk.
Absolutely essential. Everything changes so fast. The market, tech, regulations. You need a culture where people are constantly learning about risk, about resilience, about just being better leaders. That could be formal training, industry events, sharing knowledge internally. Whatever works. Keep learning.
Makes total sense. Okay, final big category, cyber risks. The guide is pretty blunt. Mid-sized companies are now prime targets. Why?
Yeah, the landscape has shifted. Cybercriminals see mid-sized firms as this sort of sweet spot. You've got valuable data, valuable IP, but often maybe not the same Fort Knox level defenses as a giant corporation, so potentially easier pickings for a good payoff.
A worrying thought. So what are the non-negotiable cybersecurity basics the guide highlights?
It really starts with the fundamentals. Strong password habits, multi-factor authentication where possible. Keeping all your software updated, patching those known holes is critical. And training your people. Making sure everyone can spot a dodgy email or a suspicious link. That's your first wall.
Basic blocking and tackling, but essential. Okay, then build an incident response plan. What does a good one include?
This is your playbook for when, not if, something happens. It needs to clearly spell out who does what. How do you contain the breach? How do you get rid of the threat? How do you recover your systems and data? And crucially, you need to test this plan. Run drills. Make sure people know their roles when the pressure is on.
Practice makes perfect, or at least less chaotic.
Exactly. Less chaos is the goal during an incident.
The guide also mentions partnering smart for cyber. When does bringing in outside help make sense?
If you don't have deep cybersecurity expertise in-house, and many mid-sized firms don't, then yeah, bringing in trusted external experts is a really smart move. They can do vulnerability checks, help you implement better security, offer monitoring. It's about filling those internal gaps strategically.
Makes sense. Don't try to DIY if you don't have the chops. And lastly, don't go without coverage. Cyber insurance. Why is that so vital now?
Because even if you do everything right, you can still get hit. And the costs of a breach, they can be astronomical. Think data recovery, legal fees, regulatory fines, notifying customers, reputational repair. It can cripple a mid-sized business.
Yeah, the costs add up fast.
They really do. So a good cyber insurance policy, one that actually fits your business risks, provides that financial backstop. It can be the difference between recovering and, well, not recovering. Talk to your insurance advisor, make sure you understand what you're getting.
Wow. Okay, this has been incredibly insightful. We've covered a lot of ground across these 4 risk areas. It feels like the message is clear.
Yeah.
Yes, there are real risks,
Right.
but there are also very practical ways for mid-sized firms to build that resilience.
Absolutely. And it's not about being fearful, right? It's about being prepared. Taking these proactive steps across finance, operations, leadership, and cyber that builds a much stronger foundation for growth, for success, whatever 2025 throws at you.
So for everyone listening, especially those in the C-suite, as you think about all this, maybe ask yourself, which one of these areas, financial, operational, leadership, or cyber, feels like the most urgent priority for your company right now? Where's the biggest opportunity to strengthen your resilience in the next year?
A great focusing question.
And maybe even commit to one thing. What's one concrete step, just one, you'll take in the next month based on what we've discussed? A small step can make a big difference. Thanks for tuning in to The Deep Dive.